The cold void of space stretched endlessly, but in one far corner of the galaxy, darkness hid a terrible secret. The stars twinkled quietly, but the silence was broken by the screams of a dying colony. Eidolon 6, once a peaceful human settlement, was now a place of chaos and fire. The sky burned with streaks of alien weapons and the air trembled with explosions. People ran through smoke-filled streets trying to hide or fight, but the enemy showed no mercy. They came not to conquer or trade, but to hunt. These hunters were the Dravari, a terrifying alien species known throughout the galaxy. They looked like giant insects, tall and swift, with sharp claws and eyes that glowed like embers. The Dravari didn't need food or shelter. Their hunger was different. They hunted for sport. They believed chasing and killing living beings was the greatest game. For them, capturing a human alive was the ultimate prize. They saw humans as nothing more than clever animals perfect for amusement. The attack started slowly. Small ships vanished, people disappeared from outposts, and strange signals broadcast warnings that went unanswered. Then the Dravari struck, in full force. They descended on colonies with fleets of sleek warships that moved like shadows. Their weapons cut through human defenses like knives through cloth. No one was safe. On Eidolon 6, the people had little time to prepare. They had relied on Earth's promise of protection, but help was far away, and the Dravari were fast. Families were torn apart. Homes were burned to ash. The colony's leaders sent frantic messages begging for aid, but the vast distances meant their cries echoed unanswered. In the command center of the colony, Captain Rhea Solis stood firm. She was a strong woman with sharp eyes and a voice that could calm even the most frightened. Her uniform was worn, and her face bore the marks of sleepless nights, but her spirit was unbroken. Around her, young soldiers scrambled to keep the defense systems running, but the Dravari's attacks were relentless. The shields flickered and the alarms blared. Rhea's mind raced. She had trained her whole life for moments like this, but nothing prepared her for the sight of her home falling apart. The colony was losing, people were dying, and yet she refused to surrender. She knew that if they gave up now, the Dravari would never stop. They would hunt every human in the galaxy for sport. The colonists gathered in makeshift shelters, whispering prayers and hoping for a miracle. Children clung to their parents, and elders shared stories of Earth, the blue planet, so far away but so full of hope. The Dravari prowled the streets, capturing anyone they could find, dragging them away to unknown fates. Suddenly, the alarm sounded a final warning. The enemy fleet was moving in for a full assault. Rhea called her officers together. "We can't outrun them," she said firmly. "We can't hide anymore." Her voice echoed in the cramped room. Her team looked at her with a mixture of fear and hope. "We fight back. Not just for ourselves, but for all of humanity." She gave orders to prepare the last remaining ships for battle. The small fleet was outnumbered and outgunned, but Rhea believed in something the Dravari did not: human courage. The Dravari hunted for fun, but humans fought to survive, and to protect those they loved. As the first Dravari warships entered orbit, Rhea stood on the bridge of the colony's command ship. The view was terrifying. Alien ships surrounded them, like a storm of dark, shining arrows. The sky above Eidolon 6 was a battlefield, lit by fiery blasts and shattered debris. With a steady breath, Rhea gripped the controls. "This ends now," she whispered. Her ship surged forward, leading the fight against the overwhelming enemy. The defenders of Eidolon 6 fought fiercely, using every tactic they had. The battle was brutal. Explosions rocked the colony, and the screams of both soldiers and civilians filled the air. Though the Dravari forces were stronger, they had underestimated human willpower. Humans adapted quickly, dodging attacks and striking with surprise. Small fighter ships darted between the enemy, their pilots risking everything to protect their home. But the cost was high. One by one, the human ships fell. The colony's defenses were breached. Rhea's heart ached as she saw the devastation. Below, The burning buildings, the shattered hopes. In the final moments before Eidolon 6 fell, Rhea made a desperate decision. She ordered her crew to evacuate on the last functioning ship, a battered corvette. They could not save the colony, but they could survive and bring news of the attack back to Earth. As the ship lifted off, she looked back once more. Flames swallowed the planet's surface, but she swore silently that humanity would not forget. The Dravari had hunted humans for sport, but the game was over. From that moment, the hunters became prey. The loss of Eidolon 6 was a heavy blow. The news reached Earth like a thunderclap, shaking governments and citizens alike. The Dravari were no longer a distant threat. They were at humanity's doorstep, hunting people for sport with no mercy. The world united in shock and sorrow, but also in determination. Earth's leaders realized that running or hiding would only lead to more death. Humanity had to fight back. Captain Rhea Solace was now far from the burning remains of her home planet. Her corvette drifted through the blackness, damaged but alive. Her crew was small, just 17 people, each carrying the weight of loss and hope in equal measure. The silence between them was heavy. No one wanted to speak of what they had left behind. But Rhea knew they had a mission now, to survive, learn, and prepare. On board their battered ship, they sifted through the data they had managed to collect from the battle. Among the wreckage and transmissions, there was something important, a key to understanding the Dravari's strength. Their technology was unlike anything humans had ever seen. Ships and weapons were part living things, connected by a network that responded to the alien pilots like a nervous system. It was a terrifying blend of biology and machine, making their warships fast, deadly, and hard to destroy. Human scientists on Earth quickly began studying the black box data sent back by Rhea's team. In research labs and space stations, they discovered the secret of the Dravari's power, a bioorganic neural mesh. This was a system where living cells were intertwined with machinery, allowing Dravari ships to feel and react almost like living creatures. Their shields could bend gravity, their weapons could adapt mid-battle, and their ships could heal themselves after damage. But this marvel had a weakness. The living parts of their machines were vulnerable to certain frequencies and viruses, something that Earth scientists could exploit. It was a fragile nerve in an otherwise powerful beast. Rhea sat in a quiet room, listening to briefings and strategies being drawn up by Earth's top commanders. The world's best minds were working night and day, building new ships designed to attack the Dravari's unique systems. These weren't the giant battleships of old wars, slow and steady. Instead, they built thousands of small, fast, and unpredictable hunter-killer packs. Each was equipped with electronic warfare tools designed to jam the Dravari's organic sensors and inject viruses into their neural meshes. The idea was clear: fight fire with fire. Use what the enemy depended on against them. No longer would humanity be easy prey. They would become hunters themselves. Rhea was chosen to lead one of the first squadrons equipped with this new technology. Her corvette was rebuilt with stealth capabilities and enhanced weaponry. Her crew trained relentlessly, learning to move like shadows, striking fast and vanishing before the enemy could react. But the challenge was immense. The Dravari still controlled vast territories, and their fleets were much larger. Every time humans struck, it was a gamble. One mistake could mean death for an entire squadron. The battles were brutal and unforgiving. Yet humanity refused to back down. During long months of fighting, Rhea's team found that they were not alone. Across the galaxy, other human colonies faced the same terror. The attacks were widespread, but so was the courage. Pilots risked their lives to rescue civilians. Scientists worked in hidden labs to improve weapons, and ordinary people supported the war effort in every way possible. Despite the fear and losses, a new spirit grew. No longer would humans run. No longer would they hide. They would stand and fight using their greatest weapons: ingenuity, adaptability, and fierce determination. Rhea's squadron became known as the Ghost Hunters, striking where the Dravari least expected. They used asteroid fields to mask their approach, jamming signals and launching sudden attacks on enemy supply lines. Every victory, no matter how small, sent a message across the stars. Humanity was not broken. One night, as Rhea sat alone in the command room, she looked out at the endless black. She thought of Eidolon 6, her lost home, and the countless others who had suffered. Her hands clenched into fists. "They hunted us like animals," she whispered. But they forgot one thing: humans fight back. Around her, the crew prepared for the next mission. They had learned that survival was not just about weapons or numbers. It was about spirit, about refusing to let fear control them. Far from Earth, the first true battle for the galaxy's future was underway. And in the heart of it, a small crew led by a woman who refused to give up was ready to change the rules forever. The hunters were about to become the hunted. Months passed, and the war between humanity and the Dravari grew fiercer. The space between stars had turned into a deadly chessboard. Each side made moves, striking, retreating, and waiting for the perfect moment to strike again. Rhea Solis and her ghost hunters had become legends, haunting the Dravari fleets like shadows in the dark. But the enemy was relentless and clever, learning from each battle and adapting fast. The stakes had never been higher. One day, an urgent message came through. A distant human colony, Ardent Prime, was under siege. The Dravari had launched a massive attack, aiming to crush the resistance and send a brutal warning to the rest of humanity. Ardent Prime was a rich mining world, full of resources needed to build Earth's new fleet. If it fell, the war would take a deadly turn. Rhea and her squadron were ordered to rush there, but the journey was dangerous. The Dravari controlled the space lanes, and ambushes waited in the shadows. As Rhea's ship approached Ardent Prime, the first signs of battle appeared. The sky above the planet glowed with laser fire and explosions. Huge warships clashed in orbit, sending waves of debris hurtling into space. Below, the surface was scarred by ground attacks. Cities burned, and desperate people fought in ruined streets. Rhea's heart clenched at the sight. She knew the horrors too well. "Prepare for battle," she ordered. Her voice was steady, but inside a fierce fire burned. She refused to let Ardent Prime fall. The ghost hunters launched into the fray. Small, fast fighters weaved through the chaos, targeting supply ships and weak points in the Dravari's defenses. They moved like a swarm of angry wasps, striking hard and then disappearing. Rhea's corvette led the charge, using new stealth technology to slip past enemy scanners. Despite their skill, the Dravari fought back with brutal force. Their living ships moved with terrifying speed, twisting and turning as if alive. The battle turned deadly close, with missiles exploding near the human ships and energy beams cutting through the void. Every second was a fight for survival. Rhea's ship was hit. Alarms blared, systems flickered, and the hull groaned under pressure. Her crew worked frantically, repairing damage and firing back. Rhea gritted her teeth, pushing through the pain of a minor injury she had gotten when debris smashed the control panel. In the chaos, Rhea spotted something strange. A Dravari warship, larger and more imposing than the others, seemed to be directing the fight. It moved with unnatural grace, almost like a commander guiding the swarm. She realized this ship held the key to the enemy's strategy. "Target that ship," she commanded. "If we can take it down, the rest will falter." Her fighters focused fire, launching coordinated attacks. The big Dravari ship responded fiercely, unleashing waves of energy and calling in reinforcements. The battle intensified. Suddenly, a shockwave exploded nearby, throwing Rhea's ship off course. The damage was severe, and her systems failed. For a moment, everything went dark. When the emergency lights flickered on, she saw the wreckage of a human fighter drifting nearby, the pilot unconscious but alive. Without hesitation, Rhea ordered a risky rescue. Bringing the fighter aboard, she found a young pilot named Jax, barely more than a boy, his eyes wide with fear but burning with determination. He told her how the Dravari had overwhelmed his squadron and that the colony's ground forces were struggling to hold key cities. Rhea felt a surge of responsibility. These people depended on her and her crew. She shared Jax's courage and vowed to protect Ardent Prime no matter the cost. The fight dragged on, hours turning into days. The Dravari adapted quickly, but so did the humans. Ria's team learned to anticipate their moves using guerrilla tactics and the terrain to their advantage. They sabotaged enemy supply lines and rescued trapped civilians. The battle became a desperate test of will. In a quiet moment, Ria stood on the bridge looking at the battered planet below. She thought about the families hiding in ruined homes, the soldiers fighting in the streets, and the children who had never known peace. Her voice softened as she spoke to her crew. We fight not just for victory, but for their future. For every life that depends on us. The crew nodded, their faces tired but unyielding. Finally, after a fierce struggle, the tide began to turn. The Dravari commander ship was critically damaged, its defenses weakening. Sensing their chance, Ria ordered a final assault. With precision and courage, the ghost hunters surrounded the enemy flagship. Explosions rocked the ship and its living systems began to fail. The Dravari pilot screamed in rage and pain as their ship was torn apart. The fall of the flagship sent shockwaves through the enemy forces. Confused and leaderless, many Dravari ships retreated, leaving Ardent Prime battered but free. As calm slowly returned, Ria allowed herself a moment to breathe. The victory had come at a high price. Many ships and brave pilots were lost, but the colony was saved. In the quiet after the storm, Ria looked up at the stars, her heart heavy but hopeful. The war was far from over, but humanity had shown the galaxy something new. When hunted, they became hunters. When cornered, they fought with a strength no enemy could break. The hunters had become prey. After the fierce battle for Ardent Prime, the war grew even darker and more dangerous. The Dravari were furious. They had lost an important stronghold, and their pride was wounded. Now they were determined to crush humanity once and for all. But humans, led by Captain Ria Solis and her ghost hunters, refused to give up. Instead, they grew stronger and smarter with every fight. Back on Earth, the scientists worked non-stop. They developed new weapons based on what they had learned about the Dravari's bioorganic technology. Tiny drones called neural disruptors were created. These little machines could sneak inside the enemy ships and interfere with their living systems, causing confusion and damage from within. The drones worked like a virus, attacking the very nerve centers that controlled the Dravari ships. This new technology gave humans an edge they desperately needed. With these upgrades, Ria's squadron prepared for their next mission. Intelligence had spotted a Dravari shipyard hidden inside a dense asteroid field known as the Veil of Shadows. The shipyard was crucial for the enemy to repair and build new warships. Destroying it would slow the Dravari's advance and give humanity a better chance to regroup. The journey to the asteroid field was tense. Navigating through thick clusters of rocks was dangerous, and the Dravari were known to use the terrain to set deadly traps. Ria and her crew kept their nerves steady, relying on careful calculations and the new stealth tech to avoid detection. Every minute was a battle of patience and skill. When they reached the heart of the Veil of Shadows, the hidden shipyard appeared like a monstrous beast among the rocks. Massive warships docked there, surrounded by smaller vessels and repair drones. The enemy was well defended, but Ria knew they had to strike fast and hard. She gathered her pilots and outlined the plan. The ghost hunters would split into two groups. One would attack the defenses and draw attention, while the other sneaked inside to plant the neural disruptor drones. The mission was risky. If caught, the team inside the shipyard would have little chance to escape. The battle began with a thunderous roar. Laser fire lit the dark space as the two groups engaged the enemy. The ghost hunters moved like lightning, dodging missiles and weaving through explosions. Ria's corvette stayed close to the fighting, coordinating attacks and guiding the team inside. Inside the shipyard, the stealth squad worked quickly. They launched the neural disruptor drones, which slipped into the Dravari ships like silent ghosts. The drones spread through the bioorganic systems, causing alarms to blare and systems to fail. Suddenly, ships that were once deadly weapons became helpless, their living cores shutting down one by one. The Dravari were shocked. Their advanced ships were breaking apart from within, and confusion spread through their ranks. Sensing weakness, the human fighters pressed their advantage, attacking with renewed fury. But the enemy was not defeated yet. A monstrous Dravari warship, known as the Titan, emerged from behind an asteroid. It was larger and more terrifying than any Rhea had seen. Its living hull pulsed with dark energy, and its weapons fired with deadly precision. The Titan targeted Rhea's squadron, cutting through fighters with powerful beams. Rhea's corvette shook from the impacts, systems faltered, and alarms screamed. The crew fought to keep control as the ship took heavy damage. Despite the danger, Rhea refused to retreat. She ordered a daring maneuver to outflank the Titan, aiming to strike at its vulnerable core. The ghost hunters followed her lead, risking everything to bring down the giant warship. The battle was intense. Explosions rocked the void as missiles collided and lasers scorched through space. Rhea's corvette flew close to the Titan, dodging blasts and firing back with everything it had. Her crew worked in perfect sync, their determination stronger than ever. Finally, the neural disruptor. Drones completed their work. The Titan's living systems began to fail, its defenses crumbling from the inside. Seizing the moment, Rhea fired a final volley of plasma missiles directly into the ship's core. With a deafening explosion, the Titan was torn apart, debris scattering across the asteroid field. The remaining Dravari ships, shaken and leaderless, fled into the darkness. The mission was a success, but the cost was high. Rhea's corvette was badly damaged and several pilots were lost. The crew mourned their fallen comrades but knew their sacrifice had bought humanity precious time. As they returned to Earth, the mood was a mix of grief and hope. The victory proved that the Dravari could be defeated, but the war was far from over. The galaxy was still a dangerous place, and the fight for survival would demand even greater courage and strength. Rhea stood on the bridge, looking out at the stars. She thought of the battles ahead, the friends lost, and the future they all hoped to build. Her voice was quiet but filled with resolve. "This is only the beginning," she said. "We fight for those who cannot, and we will never stop. The hunters have become prey, but soon they will become the hunted." Her crew nodded, ready to face whatever came next. The war for humanity's future was just getting started. After the destruction of the Titan warship, the Dravari forces were thrown into chaos, but they were far from defeated. Their pride was wounded deeply, and their rage only grew fiercer. They began to gather a massive fleet, one unlike anything the galaxy had seen before, a dark storm that threatened to crush humanity once and for all. News of this terrifying armada reached Earth, and the weight of the coming battle pressed heavily on everyone's shoulders. Captain Rhea Solis and her ghost hunters prepared for what could be the final, most desperate fight of the war. On Earth, the mood was grim, but determined. The planet's people were united like never before, their hopes pinned on the courage of their soldiers in space. Rhea stood before a crowd of young pilots and engineers, their faces eager but haunted by the losses they had already suffered. She spoke simply but with power that stirred the room. "We face the greatest threat humanity has ever known," she said, "but we do not face it alone. Every one of us, every mind, every hand, fights for the future of all mankind. The Dravari think they can break us. They will learn how wrong they are." The warships were readied, engines humming with raw power, weapons charged and systems upgraded. The ghost hunters received new equipment designed to push human technology beyond limits, faster engines, stronger shields, and advanced AI targeting systems that could predict enemy moves. Every piece of this new tech was crafted with one goal: survival. As the fleet left Earth's orbit, silence fell over the crew. The stars stretched ahead like a vast battlefield. Every pilot knew what was at stake. The Dravari armada was waiting, near the Veil of Shadows, ready to crush any who dared approach. Rhea's corvette led the advance, flanked by dozens of fighters and capital ships. The tension was thick. Communications were quiet except for the steady commands and status reports. Suddenly, sensor alarms blared. The Dravari fleet emerged from the shadows like a tidal wave. Thousands of living ships, their hulls pulsing with dark energy, weapons primed and hungry. The battle erupted instantly. Laser beams lanced through space, missiles streaked toward targets, and the void shook with the roar of explosions. The humans fought with everything they had, their pilots weaving through the deadly storm with skill and courage. But the Dravari were relentless, pressing forward with overwhelming numbers. Rhea stayed calm, her mind sharp. She directed her squadron with precision, using every tactic she had learned. She remembered the losses, the faces of those who had fallen, and let that fuel her determination. Each fighter she saved, each enemy ship they destroyed, was a victory for humanity. In the chaos, a sudden warning flashed across the screen. A massive Dravari superweapon was charging, hidden behind the fleet. It was a living star cannon, capable of wiping out entire ships with a single blast. If it fired, the human fleet would be shattered instantly. Without hesitation, Rhea ordered a risky mission. A small team of ghost hunters would break through the enemy lines and destroy the superweapon before it could fire. The pilots volunteered instantly, knowing the mission was almost a death sentence. Rhea's heart ached, but she knew the risk was necessary. The team slipped through narrow gaps, dodging enemy fire and weaving past giant ships. The tension was unbearable. One wrong move could mean destruction. They reached the superweapon, a monstrous ship wrapped in living armor. The neural disruptor, drones improved and redesigned, were launched again. The drones slipped inside the ship's systems, working quickly to cripple the cannon's power source. The Dravari fought back fiercely, sending waves of fighters to protect their prize. The small human squadron held the line, buying precious minutes. The tension soared as the superweapon began to overload, systems failing from inside out. Then came the explosion. The living star cannon erupted in a violent blast, tearing through the enemy fleet and scattering debris everywhere. The superweapon was destroyed, but so was most of the human team. Only a few escaped to fight another day. Back in the main battle, the destruction of the superweapon shifted the tide. The Dravari fleet faltered, their attack losing focus and power. Human ships surged forward, taking advantage of the confusion. The battle raged on for hours, but slowly the enemy began to retreat. Rhea's corvette took heavy damage, and many pilots were lost. The cost was high, but the victory was undeniable. Humanity had faced the storm and had not broken. They had shown the galaxy that when hunted, humans become fierce hunters themselves. After the battle, Rhea stood on the bridge, looking out at the stars still shining cold and distant. She thought about the sacrifice, the pain, and the hope burning inside her crew. She knew the war was far from over, but this victory had changed something deep within the hearts of humanity and their enemies. The Dravari would remember this day. The hunters had become prey, but now the prey were striking back with deadly force. The war for the future of the stars was only beginning, and humans were ready to fight with everything they had. The destruction of the Dravari superweapon had shaken their forces deeply, but it did not end their hatred or their plans. Instead, the alien race grew more cunning and desperate. They knew their usual brute force wouldn't be enough to defeat humanity anymore. So, they turned to a new tactic, one that aimed to break the spirit of the humans by attacking their home planets and colonies. The Dravari unleashed secret raids on scattered human settlements deep in space, striking swiftly and without warning. Each attack was a brutal reminder that the war was far from over. Captain Rhea Solis and her ghost hunters were called back to defend these vulnerable colonies. The raids were terrifying. The Dravari ships would appear out of nowhere, firing living weapons that could melt through shields and armor, then vanish before reinforcements could arrive. The colonies were isolated, and many were lightly defended. The human settlers were terrified, and hope began to flicker like a dying flame. Rhea felt the weight of responsibility more than ever. She understood that if these colonies fell, humanity's entire foothold in space could be lost. The war would move closer to Earth's doorstep. She gathered her best pilots and strategists for a new mission, to hunt down the raiders and stop the attacks at their source. It was dangerous work, requiring careful planning and quick thinking. To prepare, the human engineers developed a new type of sensor technology. These sensors could detect the unique biosignatures of Dravari ships even when they cloaked themselves in shadows. The sensors were installed on fast reconnaissance ships that could scout far ahead of the main fleets. This gave the humans a crucial advantage, the ability to track and predict where the raiders might strike next. Rhea led a squadron of these new reconnaissance ships into the outer systems, chasing faint traces of the Dravari raiders. The quiet tension was unbearable. Every signal could mean a deadly ambush or a hidden enemy waiting to strike. The pilots stayed alert, their nerves stretched tight like bowstrings ready to snap. One night, near a small human mining colony called EOS Station, the sensors picked up a large cluster of Dravari ships gathering in a hidden nebula. The raiders were preparing for a massive attack on the colony. Rhea knew there was no time to lose. She sent a warning to EOS Station and organized a surprise counterattack. As the Dravari fleet moved toward EOS, the human defenders prepared for a fierce battle. The colony's defense turrets were armed and civilian ships were evacuated as best as they could be. Rhea's squadron waited in the shadows, ready to strike first. The moment the Dravari fleet entered range, the sky lit up with laser fire. The defenders on EOS Station held the line as best they could, but it was Rhea's squadron that turned the tide. Using hit-and-run tactics, they darted through enemy formations, attacking supply ships and communication relays to disrupt the raiders' coordination. The battle was brutal. The Dravari unleashed monstrous bioweapons, creatures made of living metal and plasma that could tear through ships in seconds. The human pilots fought desperately to avoid these deadly beasts, sometimes sacrificing their own ships to save others. Each loss was painful, but giving up was not an option. Rhea's corvette became the center of the fight, its shields barely holding as it took heavy fire. Despite the danger, Rhea remained calm and focused, rallying her pilots and coordinating attacks with precise commands. Her voice was steady, a beacon in the chaos. Amid the battle, Rhea spotted the raider fleet's command ship, a massive, twisted creature covered in thick armor. She realized that if they could destroy this ship, the raiders would lose control and their attacks would falter. Gathering her bravest pilots, she led a daring assault. The assault was fierce and close. The human ships weaved through enemy fire, dodging powerful energy blasts and deadly traps. Rhea's team fired missile salvos and laser bursts trying to pierce the command ship's armor. It fought back with terrifying strength, unleashing waves of smaller ships to defend itself. Just when it seemed the command ship was unbeatable, the neural disruptor drones were launched again, slipping into the creature's living systems. The effect was immediate and devastating. The ship's armor cracked and its weapons failed. Seizing the moment, Rhea fired a concentrated plasma beam at the ship's core, causing a massive explosion that lit up the nebula. With their command ship destroyed, the raiders' formation broke apart. The surviving Dravari fled into the darkness. Their raids halted, at least for now. EOS Station was saved and its people cheered for their defenders. But the victory was bittersweet. Many human ships were lost and the cost weighed heavily on Rhea and her crew. They knew the Dravari would return with new horrors, and the war was far from over. Yet this battle showed humanity's strength and heart. Even in the darkest moments, they fought with fierce hope. Rhea stood on her ship's bridge looking out at the quiet stars. She felt the pain of loss, but also the fire of determination burning bright. The hunters had become prey, but now the prey fought back with the courage of lions. Humanity was ready to chase the enemy through the stars and never stop. The war against the Dravari had dragged on longer than anyone expected. Each battle left scars, both on the ships and in the hearts of those who fought. But despite the losses, humanity's spirit had grown fiercer. The humans no longer hid or fled. They took the fight to the enemy, hunting them across star systems, forcing the Dravari to face a new reality, that humans were relentless and deadly. Captain Rhea Solis, now a legend among her crew and the fleet, had learned to read the enemy's moves like a master chess player. Her sharp mind and fearless heart were humanity's hope in this dark time. The intelligence officers had discovered a secret. The Dravari were gathering their remaining forces in a distant system called Vraxis Prime. This system held the last massive Dravari stronghold in a large shipyard where new warships were built. Destroying this base could cripple the enemy's ability to continue the war. But the system was protected by heavy defenses, asteroid fields filled with deadly mines, powerful shield generators, and fleets ready to fight to the death. The humans knew this would be their toughest battle yet. Rhea's fleet approached Vraxis Prime in silence, each pilot feeling the weight of what was to come. The fleet moved slowly, carefully navigating the dangerous asteroid belts while scanning for traps. Every moment was tense. A single mistake could spell disaster. The humans worked as one, their trust in each other unbreakable. The engineers patched up ships damaged in earlier fights, while the commanders planned their attack down to the smallest detail. When the attack began, it was fierce and sudden. Dravari warships emerged from hiding, their weapons blazing. The void exploded with light and fire as the two fleets clashed. The humans fought with everything they had, using clever tactics and powerful new weapons. Fighters darted through enemy lines. Capital ships exchanged devastating volleys, and missiles streaked through space like deadly comets. Rhea led the charge, her corvette slicing through enemy formations. She used the neural disruptor drones, once more, sending them to infect and disable key enemy ships. The Dravari were caught off guard by these tiny, deadly machines that seemed to work like a virus, spreading through the enemy fleet and causing chaos from within. As the battle raged, the humans reached the shield generators protecting the shipyard. These massive structures pulsed with energy, nearly impenetrable. Rhea ordered a team of elite pilots to break through and destroy the generators. The pilots took the risk, flying headlong into heavy fire. One by one, they took out the generators, their ships exploding in brilliant bursts. With the shields down, the human fleet unleashed everything against the shipyard. The explosions tore through the enemy base, destroying shipbuilding facilities and crippling production. The Dravari fought fiercely to protect their home, but the humans' determination and teamwork overwhelmed them. In the heat of battle, Rhea spotted the Dravari flagship, a massive living warship covered in thick armor and pulsating with dark energy. This ship was the heart of the enemy fleet. Destroying it would break their command and morale. Rhea steeled herself and led a direct assault, dodging waves of energy blasts and swarms of enemy fighters. The final clash was brutal. Rhea's ship took heavy damage, and her crew worked desperately to keep it operational. The neural disruptor drones were deployed again, slipping into the enemy flagship systems and causing internal failures. With a final burst of power, Rhea fired her ship's main cannon at the heart of the flagship, causing a massive explosion that shattered the enemy command. As the flagship fell, the remaining Dravari ships began to retreat. The humans had won, a great victory, but the cost was high. Many brave pilots were lost and the fleet was battered. Still, the war was far from over. The Dravari had been weakened but not destroyed. After the battle, Rhea stood on the bridge, looking at the stars. Once more, the fight had tested everything humanity had, their strength, their courage, their unity. But they had proven that when pushed to the edge, humans would fight back harder than any enemy could imagine. The hunters had become the prey, but now they were the hunters again, and no one in the galaxy would forget it. The war had reached its final and most dangerous stage. The Dravari, once confident and cruel hunters of humanity, were now cornered and desperate. Their pride was shattered, their forces scattered and weakened. The humans, led by Captain Rhea, Solus and her fearless crew were no longer just defending. They were on the offensive, determined to end the war once and for all. The galaxy watched as the final battle loomed over the horizon, a fight that would decide the fate of countless worlds. The Dravari had gathered all they could muster in a remote system known as Zentaris. This was their last stronghold, a place where they planned to launch a final devastating strike against Earth itself. The humans could not allow this to happen. If Zentaris fell, the Dravari would lose their last hope. But the defenders had prepared for a siege. Massive space stations armed with powerful weapons circled the planet, and fleets of warships waited, ready to crush any attacker. Rhea's fleet arrived quietly, scanning and planning. They were smaller in number, but their spirit was stronger than ever. The humans had learned from every battle and adapted their tactics. They knew the terrain, the enemy's weaknesses, and the stakes were clear. No one could retreat. This was the endgame. The air inside Rhea's ship was tense but steady. The crew knew their families, their homes, and their futures depended on what they were about to do. The battle began with a sudden flare of energy as the two sides clashed in the void. Explosions erupted as ships exchanged fierce laser fire and missiles streaked across the darkness. The human fleet moved with precision, hitting the Dravari's defenses from unexpected angles, using speed and clever maneuvers to outwit their opponents. The neural disruptor drones were once again unleashed, sneaking into enemy ships and turning their systems against them. The Dravari were overwhelmed by attacks from within and without. As the fight escalated, Rhea led a squadron deep into the heart of the enemy's defense. Their target was the command station orbiting Zentaris, a massive fortress that coordinated the Dravari's entire defense network. Destroying it would blind the enemy and open the way for a final assault on the planet below. The squadron dodged, relentless enemy fire, weaving through fields of debris and laser blasts. The station's defenses were brutal. Turrets fired with deadly accuracy, and swarms of fighters attacked from all sides. Despite the chaos, Rhea's team pushed forward, their courage unshaken. Several ships fell, but the squadron pressed on, driven by the hope of victory. Reaching the command station, they unleashed everything they had. Missiles tore into the thick shields, and concentrated laser fire broke through the outer hull. Inside the station, explosions shook the structure as internal systems failed one by one. The Dravari scrambled to repair the damage, but it was too late. The station's core reactors began to overload. Rhea's ship took heavy damage in the retreat, barely escaping as the station erupted in a catastrophic explosion. The shockwave sent waves of debris through space, scattering the enemy fleet and breaking their hold on the system. With the command station gone, the Dravari's coordinated defense collapsed. Seeing their chance, the human fleet launched the final assault on Zentaris itself. The planet's surface was bombarded by orbital strikes, disabling enemy weapons and infrastructure. Ground forces prepared to land, ready to liberate captured colonies and free any prisoners. Despite their losses, the Dravari fought fiercely on the planet's surface, unwilling to surrender. The battles were brutal, with soldiers from both sides facing death and pain. Yet the humans pressed forward, fueled by their will to survive and protect their home. In the midst of the fighting, stories of sacrifice and heroism spread, inspiring the troops and civilians alike. Finally, after days of intense combat, the Dravari forces surrendered. Their warships fled into the unknown, their leaders captured or defeated. The war that had cost so much, brought so much pain, had come to an end. Rhea stood among the stars once more, looking toward Earth. The victory was bittersweet. So many lives lost, so many battles fought, but humanity had endured. The hunters who had once been prey now stood as guardians of peace, their strength a warning to any who dared threaten them again. In the silence after the war, the galaxy learned a powerful truth. Humans were not to be underestimated. Their resilience, courage, and unity had turned the tide. They were survivors, warriors, and protectors. And from the ashes of war, a new chapter for humanity began. One where they would stand tall among the stars, proud and unbroken.